Daniel Pierce wiped the grease from his hands and studied the mechanical arm on his workbench. The joint wasn't moving smoothly enough. The merchant who needed it would be back tomorrow, and Daniel wanted it perfect. He picked up his smallest wrench and made another adjustment. His workshop sat on the edge of Gateway Station, a huge diplomatic hub that orbited between 3 different star systems. Ships came and went every hour, bringing aliens from across the galaxy. Most of them ignored the human section of the station. Humans were still newcomers to galactic society, only 50 years since first contact. The other species saw human technology as rough and basic, nothing compared to their advanced systems. But Daniel didn't care what they thought. He built prosthetic limbs and devices for anyone who needed them. His work was simple but effective. When the fancy alien technology failed, people came to him. He could fix almost anything with the right tools and enough patience. The door to his workshop slid open. Daniel looked up and saw 2 entering. He recognized the species immediately. They were tall and thin, with pale blue skin that seemed to glow slightly in the light. Their eyes were large and dark, taking up much of their faces. This pair wore formal robes, the kind diplomats wore. The adult stepped forward. His movements were careful and controlled. "Are you Daniel Pierce?" he asked. His voice came through a translator device on his collar. "That's me," Daniel said. He put down his wrench and stood. "What can I do for you?" The gestured to the young girl beside him. She stood very still, her hands folded in front of her. Her eyes stared straight ahead, not focusing on anything. "My name is, this is my daughter. I was told you might be able to help her." Daniel walked closer and knelt down so he was at eye level with the girl. She didn't react to his movement. "What's wrong?" he asked gently. "She cannot see," said. His voice was flat, but Daniel heard the pain underneath. "She was born this way. It is a genetic condition among our people. Our medical technology cannot fix it. The neural pathways in brains are too complex. Every treatment we have tried has failed." Daniel frowned. "I'm not a doctor. I build mechanical devices, prosthetics mostly." "I know," said, "but I have heard that humans have a different way of solving problems. Your technology is simpler, but sometimes that works when advanced methods fail. I have taken to every specialist in 3 sectors. They all say the same thing. There is no cure." He paused. "You are my last hope." Daniel looked at again. The girl's face was calm, but her hands gripped each other tightly. She was scared, he realized. Scared to hope. "What exactly is the problem?" Daniel asked. "Is it her eyes or her brain?" "Both," explained. "Her eyes function normally. They receive light, but her brain cannot process the signals. The neural structure needed for vision never developed properly. Doctors tried to stimulate growth, but our biology rejected the treatments." Daniel stood and walked to his computer terminal. "Let me scan her. I need to see what we're working with." He pulled out a handheld medical scanner, one of the few pieces of advanced equipment he owned. "Is that okay?" Looked at his daughter. The girl nodded. Her voice was quiet when she spoke. "Yes." Daniel ran the scanner over his head slowly. Data filled his screen, showing the complex structure of her brain. He wasn't a neuroscientist, but he knew enough to see the problem. The visual cortex was there, but it wasn't connected properly to the rest of her nervous system. The pathways were tangled and incomplete. But something else caught his attention. There were sections of her brain that showed unusual activity, areas that seemed dormant but not dead. He made a note to investigate that later. "How do humans see?" asked. Daniel pulled up a comparison chart. "Our brains process visual information using electromagnetic signals. It's pretty straightforward. Light hits the eye, gets converted to electrical impulses, and the brain reads them." He pointed at scan. "Your people use quantum resonance. It's way more advanced, but also way more complicated. If something goes wrong, it's harder to fix." "Can you help her?" asked directly. Daniel stared at the scans. This was far beyond anything he'd attempted before. He built arms and legs, simple devices that moved and gripped. This was about making someone see, about translating between two completely different biological systems. But he thought about his own sister. She had died when he was 15 from a disease the doctors couldn't cure. He remembered feeling helpless, watching her fade away. If someone had offered even the smallest chance to save her, he would have taken it. "I can try," he said finally. "I can't promise anything, but I think I can build a device that bridges the gap between human-style visual processing and neural patterns. A visor that translates light into signals your daughter's brain can understand." His head turned slightly toward his voice. "Would I really be able to see?" she asked. Her voice shook with hope. "If this works, yes," Daniel said. "You'd see the way humans see. It might be different from how others see, but you'd have vision." His hand touched his daughter's shoulder. "How long would it take?" 3 weeks, maybe 4, Daniel said. "I need to design the interface, build the hardware, and program it to match specific neural pattern. It's custom work." "Money is not an issue," said quickly. "I will pay whatever you need." Daniel shook his head. "I don't want your money. If this works, that's payment enough." He looked at again. "Come back in 3 weeks. I'll have something ready to test." After the left, Daniel's assistant Clark emerged from the back room. She was young, barely 20, but brilliant with electronics. "You heard all that?" Daniel asked. "Every word," said. She leaned against the workbench. "Are you sure about this? We've never done anything like this before." "No," Daniel admitted, "but we have to try." Pulled up the scans on her own tablet. "These readings are strange. Look at these sections here." She highlighted the dormant areas Daniel had noticed. "What do you think they are?" "Probably just normal brain structure," Daniel said. "Every species has quirks. We'll work around it." For the next 3 weeks, Daniel barely slept. He built and rebuilt the visor a dozen times. The design was sleek, a curved band that would wrap around eyes and temples. Inside were thousands of microsensors that would detect light and convert it into quantum pulses her brain could read. The hard part was creating the translation algorithm. Human visual processing was linear and straightforward. Neural patterns were layered and interconnected in ways that seemed almost impossible to map. Daniel spent hours writing code, testing simulations, and adjusting variables. Helped him refine the hardware. She built the quantum resonance emitters that would actually communicate with his brain. "These are delicate," she warned. "If the frequency is off by even a fraction, it could hurt her." "Then we make sure the frequency is perfect," Daniel said. On the final day, Daniel held the completed visor in his hands. It was smooth and silver with a faint blue glow along the edges. He activated it and watched the systems come online. Every diagnostic showed green. The device was ready. He just hoped it would work, and arrived exactly on time, 3 weeks to the day since their first visit. Daniel noticed that walked with more confidence now, her hand resting lightly on her father's arm rather than gripping it tightly. She had been here before and knew the path. "Is it ready?" asked. His voice was steady, but Daniel saw the tension in his shoulders. Daniel picked up the visor from its case. The silver device gleamed under the workshop lights. "It's ready, but I need to explain how it works first." He gestured for them to sit at his workbench. "This visor doesn't fix your eyes or your brain. It acts as a bridge. It takes in light, processes it the way a human brain would, then translates that into signals your brain can understand." "Will it hurt?" asked. "No," Daniel said firmly. "At least all my tests say it won't. You might feel strange at first, like your brain is trying to understand something new, but there shouldn't be any pain." Stood nearby with a medical monitor in her hands. "We'll be watching your vital signs the whole time. If anything seems wrong, we take it off immediately." Nodded. "We understand the risks. We want to proceed." Daniel moved closer to. "Okay, I'm going to put this on you now. Close your eyes first." Closed her eyes, her face calm. Daniel carefully placed the visor over her eyes and temples. It adjusted automatically to fit her head, the smart materials conforming to her skull shape. He activated the device with a small button near her temple. The visor hummed softly, barely audible. Its monitor showed neural activity spiking as the quantum resonance began. "Open your eyes," Daniel said quietly. Opened her eyes. For a long moment nothing happened. She sat perfectly still, the visor covering the top half of her face. Daniel's heart sank. Maybe it hadn't worked. Maybe the translation algorithm was wrong. Then gasped. Her hand shot up and grabbed the edge of the workbench. "I see something," she whispered. "Colors, shapes. Is this real?" "Yes," Daniel said, relief flooding through him. "That's real you're seeing." But then made a small sound of distress. Her breathing quickened. "There's too much, too many layers, I can see." She reached up and pulled the visor off, her hands shaking. "I need it to stop." Immediately put his arm around his daughter. "What's wrong? What did you see?" Breathed deeply, trying to calm herself. "Everything, I saw everything. Not just the room, but the energy inside the walls, the electricity in the wires, the heat from the lights. It was all visible all at once." She looked toward where Daniel stood, her unfocused eyes not quite finding him. "Is that normal?" Daniel frowned. "No, you should only see regular light, visible spectrum like humans do." He picked up the visor and checked its readings. Everything appeared normal. The device had functioned exactly as designed. Moved closer, her scanner active. Her neural activity is still elevated. Whatever she saw, it affected her strongly. "Maybe she just needs time to adjust," suggested. It was her first time seeing anything. Perhaps it was overwhelming. "Maybe," Daniel said, but doubt crept into his mind. Those dormant brain sections he'd seen in her initial scan, what if they weren't dormant anymore? What if the visor had activated them somehow? "Can I try again?" asked, "now that I know what to expect." Daniel hesitated. "Are you sure?" Yes, there was determination in her voice. "I want to see." This time, Daniel activated the visor at a lower intensity, kept her eyes open as the device powered on. She blinked a few times, then her face relaxed into wonder. "Better," she said. "It's better now. I can see you, Daniel, your face. Your eyes are brown, your hair is black." She turned to her father. "And you, father, you look just like I imagined." His hand covered his mouth. Daniel saw tears forming in his large eyes. "You can truly see me." "Yes," said she, laughed, the sound bright and joyful. "I can see you." For the next hour, explored the workshop with the visor on. She touched everything she looked at, connecting the visual image with the physical sensation. Daniel watched her carefully, monitoring the device's output. Everything seemed stable now. But then stopped in front of a support beam near the back wall. She tilted her head, studying it. "This beam is damaged," she said. "There's a crack inside it. The metal is weak." Daniel walked over. "What? No, that beam was inspected last month. It's solid." "Look closer," insisted. She pointed at a specific spot. "Right there, about 2 inches deep into the metal." Daniel grabbed a structural scanner, something he rarely used. He ran it over the spot had indicated. The display showed a hairline fracture, exactly where she said it would be. 2 inches deep, invisible to the naked eye. "How did you know that?" Daniel asked slowly. "Touched the visor." "I don't know, I just saw it. I saw the weakness in the structure, the way the metal molecules weren't bonded correctly anymore." And Daniel exchanged a look. "That shouldn't be possible," said. "The visor doesn't have penetrating scanners. It only processes visible light." "Maybe I'm reading the signs wrong," said quickly. "The color variation or something." But Daniel knew that wasn't it. Had seen something she shouldn't be able to see. The visor was doing more than just translating light. Over the next few days, brought back to the workshop regularly. Daniel wanted to monitor her progress and make sure the device was safe. Each visit revealed something new. predicted a power surge in the station's grid 3 hours before it happened. She pointed out structural flaws that sophisticated scanners had missed. She described the composition of alloys just by looking at them. "I don't understand what's happening," Daniel admitted to one evening after had left. "The visor is working exactly as designed, but somehow it's letting her see things that aren't visible." Pulled up's latest neural scans. "Look at this. These sections of her brain that were dormant before, they're active now, extremely active. The visor didn't just give her normal vision, it woke something up." Daniel studied the scans. The activated regions were lighting up in complex patterns every time wore the visor. "What are they?" he asked. "I don't know," said, "but I think we should find out before word spreads about this. People are already talking. A blind girl who can suddenly see things no one else can, that's going to attract attention." She was right. The next morning, 3 more families contacted Daniel. All of them had blind children. All of them wanted the visor. News traveled fast on Gateway Station. But it wasn't just grateful families who were interested. That afternoon, a tall woman visited the workshop. She wore the robes of a historian. "My name is Scholar," she said. "I heard about what you've done for Young. May I ask you some questions?" Daniel agreed. He explained the visor's basic function, leaving out strange abilities to see hidden things. But seemed to know anyway. "Tell me, Daniel Pierce, when wears your device, does she see only the surface of things, or does she perceive deeper?" Daniel hesitated. "Why do you ask?" His expression was grave. "Because there are old stories among my people, stories of a time when could see beyond the physical world, when we could perceive the quantum structure of reality itself. It was called the deep sight." She paused. "Those who had it could do remarkable things, but it came with a terrible price." "What kind of price?" Daniel asked. "Madness, destruction, war," met his eyes. "We gave up that ability voluntarily thousands of years ago. We changed ourselves genetically to suppress it because the power was too dangerous, too destructive." She gestured toward the visor on his workbench. "I fear your device may be undoing what my ancestors sacrificed everything to accomplish." Daniel felt cold. "You think the visor is bringing back this deep sight?" "I think it's possible," said. "And if I'm right, you may have started something that cannot be stopped." That evening, Daniel sat alone in his workshop long after everyone had gone. The visor sat on his bench, looking innocent and harmless. He had built it to help a blind girl see. He had wanted to give her the gift of vision, nothing more. But now he wondered what else he had given her, and whether he had just made the biggest mistake of his life. Daniel couldn't sleep that night. Scholar's words kept running through his mind. The deep sight, ancient powers, a terrible price. He finally gave up on rest and went back to his workshop at 3 in the morning. He found already there, standing outside the locked door. "I couldn't sleep either," said quietly. "Scholar visited me this evening. She told me the same things she told you." Daniel unlocked the door and they went inside together. The workshop was dark except for the emergency lights. "Do you believe her?" Daniel asked. "About the deep sight in your people's history?" Was silent for a long moment. "I don't know, but I've been watching. Her abilities are growing stronger every day. Yesterday she told me about a conversation happening 3 rooms away. She said she could see the sound waves moving through the air." He looked at Daniel. "That's not normal vision." "I know." Daniel pulled up his computer files. "I've been researching biology for the past 6 hours. There's not much information available to humans, but I found some old medical journals. Your people do have unusual neural structures, sections of the brain that serve no apparent purpose in modern." "Evolutionary remnants," said. "That's what our doctors always told us. Leftover parts from ancient ancestors." "But what if they're not leftovers?" Daniel asked. "What if they're suppressed features, abilities that were turned off but never actually removed?" "Move to the workbench where the visor sat, and your device turned them back on." It's possible. The quantum resonance might have stimulated those dormant areas. I designed it to bridge neural pathways for vision, but maybe it bridged something else too. Picked up the visor carefully. We need to know the truth. We need to know what my people really were and what might become. They spent the next 2 days researching together, had access to archives that Daniel couldn't reach. He pulled historical records, some over 10,000 years old. Most were written in ancient script, but the translation software slowly converted them. The picture that emerged was frightening. Ancient had indeed possessed the deep sight. They could perceive quantum fields, energy patterns, and the fundamental structure of matter. More than that, they could manipulate what they saw. A skilled practitioner could move objects without touching them, read thoughts from a distance, or even alter the molecular bonds of substances. They had been gods among the stars. But they were also destroyers, read from one document. It says here that colonies fought wars that devastated entire planets. Psychics would battle each other, tearing apart the fabric of space itself. Millions died in conflicts that lasted centuries. Daniel found another record. This one describes a council decision. The leaders of civilization chose to end the deep sight permanently. They developed a genetic treatment that would suppress the ability. It was voluntary at first, but eventually became mandatory. Within a few generations, all lost the power. They saved themselves by giving up what made them special, said softly. And now I've asked you to give it back to my daughter. Before Daniel could respond, rushed into the workshop. We have a problem, a big one. The Galactic Council sent an investigator he's here about. The investigator arrived an hour later. He was one of the galaxy's oldest and most powerful species. Looked like scaled bears, massive and intimidating. This one wore the formal uniform of a council executor. I am executor, he said. His voice was deep and rumbling. I'm here to investigate reports of illegal experimentation and potentially dangerous technology. There's no illegal experimentation, Daniel said firmly. I built a medical device to help a blind child see. That's all. That is not all, said. He pulled out and read from it. Reports indicate that the subject, one of valor, can now perceive things beyond normal visual range. She has demonstrated predictive abilities and structural analysis capability that exceeds sophisticated scanning equipment. This suggests the device does far more than restore vision. Stepped forward. My daughter can see for the first time in her life. Whatever else happens is a blessing, not a crime. That depends on what she becomes, said. I need to see this device in action. I need to evaluate the girl myself. They had no choice but to agree. Followed them to quarters on the station, where was studying with her visor on. She was reading a book, something she had never been able to do before. Said gently, there's someone here who wants to meet you. Looked up. Through the visor, her eyes were bright and aware. She studied executor carefully. You're afraid, she said. I can see it. Your heart rate is elevated. Your body temperature is higher than normal. His eyes narrowed. You can see my vital signs. I can see the heat your body produces, the way blood moves under your skin, the electrical signals in your nervous system. Tilted her head. Why are you afraid of me? I'm not afraid of you, child, said. I'm afraid of what you represent. For the next hour, tested its abilities. He had her identify objects in sealed boxes. She described them perfectly. He asked her to read a message in another room. She repeated it word for word. He showed her a complex machine and asked her what was wrong with it. She pointed out 3 separate malfunctions that his own scanners confirmed. Finally, asked her to move a stylus across a table without touching it. Hesitated. I've never tried that before. Please try now, said. Focused on the stylus. Her face showed concentration. For a moment nothing happened. Then the stylus trembled. It lifted slightly off the table, wobbled in the air, and fell back down. turned to Daniel and, "You've awakened something that should have stayed buried." Back at Daniel's workshop, explained the full situation. The Galactic Council has records of ancient conflicts. They nearly destroyed themselves and took half the sector with them. The Council was relieved when suppressed their psychic abilities. It was seen as a mature choice, a species choosing peace over power. "My daughter deserves to see," said, anger in his voice. "You can't ask her to give that up." "I'm not asking anything yet," said, "but the Council needs to know about this technology, and they need to decide what happens next." "What about the other blind?" asked. "There are thousands of them across the galaxy. Don't they deserve the chance to see too?" "Maybe," said, "but at what cost? If each one develops psychic powers, what happens? Do we risk another age of supremacy, another series of devastating wars?" Daniel felt the weight of the situation crushing down on him. He had wanted to help one person. Now entire governments were involved, making decisions that would affect millions. "There might be another option," he said slowly. "I could modify the visor, make a version that gives vision without activating the dormant brain regions. It would take some work, but I think I can filter out the quantum resonance frequencies that trigger the deep sight. Considered this. That would be acceptable to the Council, vision without power." "No," said firmly. Everyone turned to look at her. She stood in the doorway, her visor still on. "I don't want a limited version. I don't want to give up what I can do." I started. "No, Father. For the first time in my life I can see, really see. I can perceive things that no one else can. I can help people. Why should I give that up because of what other did thousands of years ago?" "Because that power corrupted them," said gently. "Because it led to war and death. Because your people chose to give it up for very good reasons." "But I'm not them," insisted. "I wouldn't use it to hurt anyone." "That's what they all said at first," replied. "But power changes people, especially this kind of power." Daniel watched the argument continue and felt torn. He understood both sides, deserved her sight and her abilities, but the risk was real. He had read the historical accounts. The wars had been brutal beyond imagination. His invention had seemed so simple at the start, a visor to help a blind girl see. Now it threatened to reshape the entire balance of galactic power. And the worst part was, other engineers had already his basic design, had found 3 different versions online, all based on his original schematics. Other blind were already wearing similar devices. The deep sight was spreading, and no one knew how to stop it. News of the visor spread across the galaxy faster than Daniel had imagined possible. Within a week, protests erupted on 3 different worlds. On Valor itself, thousands of blind citizens demanded access to the technology. On other planets, angry crowds called for the visors to be banned completely. Daniel watched the news feeds in his workshop with growing dread. Ships arrived at Gateway Station every day now, bringing journalists, activists, and desperate families. His quiet workshop had become the center of a galactic crisis. "We received 50 more requests today," said, sorting through messages. "Blind from all over. They all want visors. Some of them are offering incredible amounts of money." "Tell them no," Daniel said. "Until we understand what's really happening, I'm not making any more devices." But it was already too late. Other engineers had taken his basic design and improved on it. Factories on Valor had begun mass production. Computer flagged a news report showing a facility churning out hundreds of visors per day. "They're not even testing them," said, horrified. "They're just distributing them to anyone who wants one." Executor arrived that evening with urgent news. "The Galactic Council has called an emergency session. You're required to testify. We leave in 2 hours." The council chamber was enormous, a circular room that could hold representatives from 50 different species. Daniel had never seen anything like it. Delegates sat in elevated pods that ringed the walls. each one translating the proceedings into their native language. Daniel and were brought to the center of the floor. Bright lights focused on them from every direction. Daniel could feel thousands of eyes watching. The council speaker, an elderly with silver skin, called the session to order. Her voice echoed through the chamber. We are here to address the matter of the visors and the return of what ancient records call the deep sight. Daniel Pierce, you created the first device. Explain your intentions. Daniel stepped forward. His hands shook, but he kept his voice steady. I built a medical device to help a blind child see. That was my only intention. I didn't know about history. I didn't know what the device would unlock. Ignorance doesn't excuse consequences, a delegate from the collective called out. You've unleashed something dangerous. Dangerous? Another voice shouted. This came from a delegate. My people have suffered with blindness for generations. This human has given us a cure. How is that dangerous? The chamber erupted into argument. Different species shouted over each other. Some defended the visors. Others demanded they be destroyed. Daniel just stood there, overwhelmed by the chaos his invention had created. The speaker called for order. We will hear testimony from the affected parties. Of valor, please speak. Stepped forward. She wore her visor and her posture was confident. I was born blind. I never saw my father's face. I never saw a sunrise. I never read a book with my own eyes. Her voice carried clearly through the chamber. Daniel Pierce gave me all of that. He gave me life in a way I never had before. Why should I have to give it back? Because your abilities are growing, Executor said. He had taken a position near the speaker. In the past week alone, you've demonstrated telepathic sensitivity, matter manipulation, and predictive analysis. You are becoming what your ancestors were. What happens when hundreds have the same powers? We learn to control them, said. We study them. We use them responsibly. That's what they said 10,000 years ago, an ancient delegate said. Her voice was weak with age. I am Keeper Sola. I maintain the historical archives. I have read the accounts of what the deep sight did to our people. It started with good intentions. It ended with wars that killed billions. The chamber fell silent. Keeper Sola continued. The first generation used their powers for good. They healed the sick, moved mountains, and saw across vast distances. But power attracts those who want more power. Soon, factions formed. Psychics fought other psychics. They tore apart planets in their battles. They created weapons that could destroy stars themselves. But we're not them, a young voice called from one of the delegate pods. We're different. We have the council now. We have laws. Laws mean nothing to those with the power to break them, Keeper Sola said. That is the lesson our ancestors learned. That is why they gave up the deep sight. Not because they were weak, but because they were wise. Daniel listened to the debate continue for hours. The arguments went in circles. Some species wanted the visors banned immediately. Others defended rights to medical treatment. A few even suggested weaponizing the technology for military use. During a recess, pulled Daniel aside. His face was strained. I need to tell you something. A group contacted me 2 days ago. They call themselves the Ascendancy. Who are they? Daniel asked. Extremists. They believe our people should reclaim our place as the dominant species in the galaxy. They want me to help them distribute visors to as many as possible. Hands clenched into fists. They think the return of the deep sight is destiny, that are meant to rule. Daniel felt cold. What did you tell them? I refused, but they didn't take it well. They said they would move forward with or without my cooperation. Looked at who was talking with across the room. They specifically mentioned they want to study her, learn from her, use her as an example of what can become. We need to tell Executor, Daniel said. I already did. He's investigating, but the Ascendancy is well hidden. They operate in secret. That night, everything changed. Daniel was sleeping in temporary quarters provided by the council when alarms woke him. Red emergency lights filled the hallways. He ran to the main chamber and found chaos. "What happened?" he asked a passing guard. "The Ascendancy made their move," the guard said. "They distributed 500 visors in a coordinated strike. 500 blind just received the deep sight simultaneously." Daniel's heart sank. He found in the Emergency Operations Center, surrounded by monitors showing feeds from different planets. Each screen showed the same thing: confused, overwhelmed by their new abilities, causing accidents and damage as their untrained minds tried to process the deep sight. "They're destroying everything around them," said grimly. "Not on purpose. They just can't control it. One woman in the Praxis sector lifted her entire house 3 feet off the ground and doesn't know how to put it down. A man on Valor Prime is broadcasting his thoughts to everyone within a mile radius. They're scared and dangerous." "Can we shut down the visors remotely?" Daniel asked. "No, the Ascendancy models don't have that feature. They're permanent once activated." Arrived, breathing hard from running. "It's getting worse. The psychic energy from 500 newly awakened minds is causing interference. Ship navigation is failing. Communication systems are down. The Council is losing control." On one monitor, Daniel watched as a man accidentally collapsed a building with a thought. People ran screaming from the rubble. "We need to do something," Daniel said. "We need to help them control it." "How?" demanded. "It took ancient years to learn control. We don't have years. We barely have hours before this escalates into a full crisis." Spoke quietly from the doorway. "There is one person who might be able to help. One person who has experience with the deep sight and has learned some control." He looked at Daniel. "She's just a child," Daniel protested. "She's the most experienced user we have," said. "And she's the only one who might be able to reach the others. If she can show them how to calm their minds, how to focus their abilities, maybe she can prevent this from becoming a disaster." Daniel wanted to refuse, wanted to protect from this burden, but he looked at the monitors showing the chaos and knew was right, was their only hope. "Where is she?" he asked. "Already on her way," said. He pulled up another screen showing a transport ship. "She contacted me an hour ago. She said she could feel the new psychics awakening, feel their terror and confusion. She volunteered to help." "Without asking her father," said shocked. "She said you would have said no," replied. "She said this was her choice to make." Daniel watched the transport ship carrying toward the center of the crisis. She was flying into danger, into a situation that could easily kill her. And he was the one who had made it all possible. The transport carrying entered the Praxis sector, where the largest concentration of newly awakened struggled with their abilities. Daniel watched through the monitors as her ship navigated through a field of debris. Objects floated randomly in space, torn from the surface by uncontrolled psychic force. "She's getting close," said. The communication channels crackled with static from psychic interference. "Can you hear me?" "I can hear you," his voice came through, calm despite the chaos around her. "I can also hear them, all 500 of them. They're screaming in my mind." Grabbed the edge of the console, his face pale. "Bring her back. This is too dangerous." "She's the only chance those people have," said. "Without her, they'll tear themselves and everything around them apart." Daniel had been working frantically at his computer. "I might have another option. If I can modify the visor's quantum frequency, I can create a dampening field. It would reduce the psychic output, make the deep sight more manageable." "How long?" asked. "Hours, maybe days." Daniel looked at the monitors showing people in terror, buildings collapsing, ships spinning out of control. "We don't have that much time." "Then we trust," said quietly. "She knows what she's capable of." On the main screen, transport landed on Praxis 7, a colony world where 200 of the newly awakened were located. The ship's cameras showed her stepping out onto the landing platform. She stood alone, a small figure against the backdrop of chaos. "What's your plan?" asked. I'm going to link with them, said. Show them what I know, guide them to calm. That's never been done before, Keeper Sola said. She had joined them in the operations center. Even ancient psychics couldn't link with so many minds at once. The feedback could kill you. Maybe, said, but people are dying now, I have to try. Daniel wanted to scream at her to stop, to come back, to let someone else solve this problem. But he remained silent. This was her choice, her power, her responsibility. Closed her eyes. Through the monitors, Daniel saw her body begin to glow with a faint blue light. The psychic energy around her became visible as waves of distortion in the air. She's reaching out, Keeper Sola whispered, connecting to every awakened mind in the sector. On other monitors, the chaotic behavior of the new psychics began to change. They stopped thrashing, stopped accidentally destroying things. They stood still, their faces peaceful. What's she doing? Asked. She's showing them her own mind, Keeper Sola said, studying readings on her. Her memories, her experiences, how she learned to focus, how she learned to control the power. She's teaching 500 people simultaneously. Daniel watched in amazement as the crisis slowly subsided. Buildings stopped shaking. Floating objects gently returned to the ground. The psychic interference faded from the communication channels. But then stumbled. Her glow flickered. She's reaching her limit, Keeper Sola said. The strain is too much. Fell to her knees on the landing platform. Blood ran from her nose. Her body shook with effort. Pull her out, shouted. Someone get her out of there. Wait, Keeper Sola said. She's doing something else. On the monitor, raised her head. Her voice came through the speakers, but it sounded different, layered, as if 500 voices spoke with her. I've shown them control. Now I need to show them something else. I need to show them why our ancestors gave up this power. What do you mean? Asked. I need to show them what we could become if we keep it. Stood, the blue glow around her intensified until it was almost painful to look at. Then she opened a window into the past. Through her psychic connection to all the others, she projected the memories from the ancient archives. Memories of the old wars, the devastation, the billions who died. She showed them psychics fighting each other, tearing planets apart. She showed them families destroyed, civilizations ended, entire species made extinct by civil wars. She showed them the horror that the deep sight had brought. And then she showed them the choice their ancestors made, the sacrifice, the decision to give up godlike power in order to live in peace. The transmission lasted only minutes, but those minutes changed everything. When it ended, collapsed, medical teams rushed to her, ran from the operations center toward the transport bay. Daniel stood frozen, watching the aftermath on the monitors. Across the sector, the newly awakened wept. They understood now. They knew what they had been given and what it could cost. 3 hours later, Daniel sat beside's medical bed. She was awake but weak, her father holding her hand, and Keeper Sola stood nearby. You saved them, Daniel said quietly. You saved everyone. No, said, her voice was hoarse. I just showed them the truth. What happens next is their choice. And what's your choice? Asked. Looked at the visor sitting on the bedside table, the device that had given her sight and power. Daniel, can you build the limited version, the one that gives vision without the deep sight? Daniel felt relief and sadness at the same time. Yes, I can do that. Then that's what I want, said. I want to see the world, but I don't want to carry the weight of that power anymore. I've felt what it can do. I've felt the temptation to use it. I'm not strong enough to resist it forever. None of us are. Over the next week, the other awakened made the same choice. One by one, they contacted Daniel and requested the limited visor. The Ascendancy tried to rally support, but no one listened. Their members had felt what showed them. They understood the price of power. The Galactic Council held another session, this time to approve Daniel's modified visor for medical use. The vote was unanimous. Any blind could receive the device and gain normal sight. But the unlimited version, the one that awakened the deep sight, was banned across all council space. "You have done something remarkable," Keeper Sola told Daniel on the last day. "You gave my people a gift and then helped them understand when to refuse a greater gift. That takes wisdom." "I just made a visor," Daniel said. "Is the one with wisdom." "Perhaps," Keeper Sola said, "but you created the tool. You built it with compassion, not ambition. That matters." 3 months later, Daniel's workshop had returned to normal. He still built prosthetics for various species. He still worked long hours. But now he had a new project. Handed him a data chip. Production report. "The factories have completed 10,000 limited visors. Every blind in this sector will have one by the end of the year." Daniel smiled. "Good, that's good." A message appeared on his screen. It was from. She sent him a photo of herself at the Science Academy. She was studying quantum mechanics, trying to understand the power she had briefly held. The message said she was happy, that she was learning, that she was grateful. But the last line made Daniel pause. "One day, maybe thousands of years from now, my people might be ready to handle the deep sight. Maybe we'll have grown enough as a species, but not today. Thank you for understanding that." Daniel saved the message and turned back to his workbench. He had a new arm to build for a merchant. Simple work, honest work, the kind of work that helped people without changing the galaxy. His assistant brought him a cup of coffee. "You okay?" asked. "Yeah," Daniel said, "I'm okay." He picked up his tools and got to work. The Visor project was over, but life continued. And maybe that was the point. Not every problem needed to be solved immediately. Not every power needed to be claimed. Sometimes the bravest choice was knowing when to say no. Daniel thought about reading books with her own eyes, seeing sunsets on her home world, living a normal life with normal vision. He had wanted to give her that. And in the end, despite everything that happened, he had. The galaxy had been shaken. Ancient powers had awakened and then willingly gone back to sleep. Thousands of blind people could now see. And somehow, despite all the chaos and danger, things had worked out. Daniel allowed himself a small smile. Maybe humans weren't so bad at this galactic society thing after all. They just needed to remember that sometimes the best solution wasn't the most powerful one. Sometimes it was the simple one, the one that helped without hurting. He returned to his work, building and fixing, one piece at a time. The galaxy could keep its wars and councils and ancient powers. Daniel Pierce would stay in his workshop, helping anyone who needed it, one person at a time. And that, he realized, was exactly where he belonged.